So if you don't know, I do have a few videos on here. I don't know who has seen what or if you know, but my name is Chrissy and I live in Ohio. I am married. My husband and I are Christians. We're very solid believers. We've been in ministry. He's a full-time pastor, or has been a full-time pastor for around 15 years and worked in churches. That was our solid sole income. I am a trained mental health therapist, Christian therapist. I'm not practicing or doing anything really with it right now. I hope to, but we're kind of in this weird spot, as you'll see. I think the main reason I feel drawn to make this video and to commit myself to getting on YouTube, putting myself out there, is because my view of the church has just been so devastated by what we've been through. And when I talk about it and my husband and I go through our story, which I'll share with you here, I'm always drawn back to this place of, how can I make something good out of it? How can I find a way? How can God use me to redeem this situation and find something good out of it? I know God will eventually show the purpose of it or make sense of it, whether it's here or in heaven. I don't know, and I think I'm doing better than I have been in the past, because this is not the first time we've been hurt this deep. This has been, this is not the first time. This is one of the worst, but this is not the first time. So our life is just in this weird transition right now. And I guess being where I'm at, I feel very vulnerable to share, not just in hopes that it'll help someone else in ministry, but also to keep track, because I feel in my gut that things are really gonna change and get better, and hopefully we know already where we're heading, in a sense, and you'll see. I hope I can do justice for this video, because I know I'm not the most exciting person in the world. I married my husband because he's a very exciting, happy, charismatic person, and I'm not, and that's okay. It's really just for information, I guess, or keep track. But all right, so like I said, we've been in ministry for about 15 years. We went to college, met in college, got married right out of college, and he knew then that he was going to be a pastor. And so our senior year, he was working with a church in ministry, in youth ministry. And we left college, and where did we go? We moved to be with his parents. We moved to be with his parents because we just found out that I was pregnant. So it was like, oh my gosh, barely a year, not even a year after being married. So I think we were pregnant on our 1-year anniversary, and we were living with his family. So this was around 2007. Yeah. And so we moved, I believe, in May 2007, and we spent that summer with his parents and just worked odd jobs, just tried to find a church job. And in September that year, right before my son was born in November, we were hired for a youth pastor job. It was his first full-time ministry job. And we had my son there, and things were pretty good. And as most church jobs do, they kind of show their true colors and what you're hired into. You don't really see the problems of the church or so on. Every church has it, just like any company you work for. So we were young and stupid, and we didn't stay there very long. We were probably there just under a year. And we decided, instead of sticking around through all the struggles, let's go to school and pursue more education to help us find better jobs. And I had wanted to be a therapist. I knew that then. So we left Ohio and moved to Virginia to go to school at Liberty University. And at the time, we thought that was the hardest thing I could imagine ever going through. We moved away from our families. We didn't have jobs set up to go down there. We had to move there and find something. So it was financially a big struggle. And it was just, oh man, it was like every step was a huge risk and a huge step of faith. But God provided, and He got us through. And that didn't last very long either. We were there probably like 9 or 10 months. Could not find good, solid jobs. No one wanted to hire the students around the campus. We had our little boy there. It was a struggle. So at around that 1 year mark, we decided to start looking for jobs back in Ohio. So we moved back to Ohio. I got a job there. And my husband was still looking for ministry jobs. Found ourselves pregnant with our second baby girl, and it was a very special time, just knowing we were building our family, and we found out we were having a little girl. And shortly around the time Layla was born, that was 2009, that was when Bob finally did get a solid church job. This time he moved from youth ministry into music. And so we moved across the state, and we moved to a really nice church, lots of great people. He was doing worship. Church was vibrant, growing. It was a solid church. And, it kind of led us down a path of just moving him up in his career. And no major issues, but did still move us around. We had one job that kind of worked, but after a year or two, we found, we needed to make more money, or, for me to find a job, it was just different situations arise. So we found ourselves in 2012. Yeah, 2012. We had moved to another area of Ohio for a different job for him. We were about to have our third, and we got involved with the church. And if you go back in my videos, it will explain our situation there, that Bob was challenging some views on how to grow the church. He scared some people in the church, and they let him go. And it was very painful, because it was our first big hit with ministry, that if you challenge anything, because it's not a big company, because there's no one overseeing decisions being made in a small church, they can just dump you. And fortunately, God was with us and led us from one thing to another. If you look through that video, my happiness shines through that it was not as devastating as it could have been, because we didn't miss like a cycle with pay. Like, that was just the icing on the cake, that He took care of everything, and financially we were good. Skip to 2019. And now we've been in ministry for several years. And Bob finally got his senior pastor position. It's kind of like the rite of passage, if you're going to fight your way through ministry, trying to get a real pastoral position, if you can get to the place where you can be a senior pastor, that's the ultimate, that's the top. That's where most pastors want to end up. You have to work your way up just like you do in the corporate world. And he did. So we move for a position still in Ohio, but we had kind of secured our place with another church, and he built his way up, gain recognition, gain some authority, and just a good reputation for himself that he's done well in ministry. So we take this role and things are great. We move into a beautiful home. We were so happy. We were so excited for this new house. It was our dream. God had provided so many things along the way to just get us set. And Bob was in a spot where he thought, you know, this is what I've worked so hard for. I've pushed along so many hard battles to get to this place. And 10 months into our first year, we're going on vacation. It's our first vacation in several years. And my husband is just not himself. He's like agitating me because he's just not relaxed. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? We finally get to go on a cruise with our kids. We finally get to have a break. And I'm just like, why are you throwing this vacation away? And finally he opens up to me and he says, I feel like I have a big mess waiting for me at home. Because I know there's some things with the staff and the elders, the people that run the church, the overseeing committee, I should say. I know I'm coming back to something's wrong. But really at the time I thought, well, you know, you may have some disagreements here or there, but nothing major. Why don't let this ruin your vacation? So we get home. He gets into a conversation with one of the elders, catches her in a lie, and says, this is a problem. We need to have a group discussion with the elder board. We can't do this over the phone. Calls a meeting, goes to that meeting that Friday night, and he calls me before he goes in and he's laughing. He's like, well, I know this is either going to be 5 minutes or 3 hours. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Well, 5 minutes later, he walks in my house, comes into my room and says I was just fired. And my heart sank. I just could not believe, once again, here we are with a church that just decides to throw their weight around and just drops us. I mean, we gave up everything. We gave up all our friends, the people we knew. We couldn't even sell our house in the other city, so we rented it out and had to rent a house here. We drove here for 6 months trying to find a place to live before we found it. So it took quite a long time to get settled. We had so many wonderful people and several wonderful families that just kind of like loved on us and took us in and made us feel so safe and welcome. And one disagreement led to this, maybe 10 people deciding my fate, that me and my children deserve to go without. We had one more paycheck left before we were cut off. They weren't even sure if they were going to give us all of the paycheck, which they did. And I'm just so hurt. I'm so heartbroken because I already had trouble trusting people, being that we had moved around so much and been in so many different churches trying to grow our resume and build a position, and things just happen that way. It's like military. It just doesn't, you don't stick around. I think the average pastor is like 2 years in a position, which we had done longer than that. We had found some really great churches and great people, but we had stepped away for other reasons than that. And then this came up. But it has just ripped my heart out, and I'm just so hurt by it. I mean, I reached out to some women that were the first ones that took me in when we moved here, and I just said, please tell me you're gonna look into this yourself. You're not gonna just listen and take someone else's word. And they just gave me very generic, like, we're praying for you, we'll be thinking about you. very sad about the situation, but never, oh, don't worry, we're going to look into it. Don't worry, we're going to give you a chance to defend yourself. They won't let my husband defend himself. They said because he was angry, he deserves to be fired. And then he was told it was for irreconcilable differences that we couldn't reconcile. Well, he was never given an opportunity to reconcile. He was never given an opportunity to defend himself in front of the church. Even now, just like, it still hurts so bad. So once the shock kind of wore off, we said, okay, well, we know we didn't do anything wrong. We know this is crazy. So God is going to do something crazy to help us. So we apply for food stamps. We were denied. We apply for unemployment. We were denied. Found out we had a pretty significant tax refund coming because we didn't make hardly anything. And that was denied, taken away, applied to our school loans. So it's just like everything we could was coming down. And that kind of wore off. And then we just kept praying and saying, okay, God, what is it you want us to do? How do you want to handle this? What's our part in it? We're trying to trust you. We're trying to honor you. We're trying to honor these people, although I don't want to honor them. I don't want to be nice to them. I want to blame them. I want to come after them. I'm not. I'm going to try to stay focused. And he reminds us that we have this little itty bitty tiny baby of a business that is still kind of holding on by life support. And so Bob and I come together and we're both like, okay, if God's not going to give us any money by way of handouts, maybe by some possibility he'll grow this business. And sure enough, within like 3 or 4 days, Bob had a phone call, not prompted by us, for someone who was interested in Bob's business, which I'll explain that more later. I'm trying to keep this low. It's already a long video. But we'll just say it's a tech startup. And someone called him and said, I'm interested in purchasing one of your kiosks. And so he says, okay, and schedules a phone call. I remember falling asleep on the couch, which I never take naps during the day. I was just laying there, kids were playing next to me, and I was just like kind of resting, not even really asleep, just resting. And Bob runs in the room and he goes, you won't believe it, and woke me up, and I stood straight up and he goes, he just bought 5. And I was just like, you're kidding me, what? And so suddenly, like, we had a spark in this business. And we both said, well, we got to ride this, we got to ride with this momentum. So he starts making phone calls, finds out there's a conference coming up that he can be a vendor and share his product with people. So he's talking to my dad. He's telling my dad about it. My dad, who's an entrepreneur and businessman, he's like, yep, let's do it. Let's go. Let's find a way. Let's make a way. So we kind of pull our resources together, and he has like a week and a half until this event. And so he starts making more phone calls and find out we have some connections with people, and this person's connecting us here with this person and saying, oh, well, I'll meet you there. We'll be excited to see it. And the one really cool thing that happened was he was cold calling this big CEO. Couldn't get in. Nobody expected him to be connected. But just by way of searching around, he finds this guy's direct line, and he calls, and this big CEO answers the phone, and Bob's just like kind of stunned, and he's like, hi, my name's Bob Gardner. And he just goes on and on and on. And the guy goes, I would have never answered that phone call, but your name, Bob Gardner, is the same as my head sales director. He said, that's the only reason why I answered your phone call. He's like, yes, I'm interested. Let's set up a meeting. So God was faithful. And I guess that's why I'm doing this. It's not even for anybody seeing or means of YouTube. It's just to keep track, because I keep saying to him, like, nobody would believe us. And the people we're close to, that we keep in contact with, that love us, and they say, hey, what's going on? How can I pray for you? We share these stories with them, and they just say, this is crazy. Why does this happen to you? It doesn't happen to anybody else but you. Here it is again, another way that God is just, he takes us on this roller coaster. So at the same time, we're trying to heal and let go and just deal with this pain of being let go from our church and not really understanding this whole situation and not really seeing why God would want it this way. He's like one and another, and like they're going up and down. And so here we are trying to build this business up. It's just so hard to stay faithful to God in this moment. So if you are a believer and you're seeing this, I ask that you pray for me, even if you don't know me, because I'm struggling. I'm really struggling to stay positive, and I don't have anyone. I'm in this town. I know, like, seriously, like 2-3 people that would answer the phone or write back on my text messages right now, because I have a church full of people who don't want anything to do with us and don't care to know we're struggling. Don't care that our income was just like ripped from underneath us. And we're just trying to figure it out, trying to make sense of how to balance this whole plan of trying to build a business and take an income from it, but not get ahead of ourselves, because we've tried this already and it didn't work, and it was really devastating. So I think I'll just end it there. Thank you for watching. I hope you got something good out of this. And like I said, if you are a believer and you kind of know what I'm going through or can relate in any way, I'd appreciate your prayers. Thanks.